So today we will be asking chat interview questions based on requirements to get jobs and things like that.
My occupation was human resource management or manager. Chat came up with our first question, which is how do you handle conflicts between employees? Chat responded with, I approach conflicts by first understanding both perspectives through private, respectful conversations. I focus on identifying the root cause rather than just the symptoms. Once both sides feel heard, I facilitate a constructive discussion to find common ground and agree on a solution. I also document the situation and follow up to ensure the resolution is working and that there are no lurking issues. Question number 2, how do you ensure compliance with the labor laws and regulations? The response to that was, I stay up to date with federal, state, and local labor laws through continuous education, professional networks, and legal updates. I also regularly audit companies' policies, practices to ensure compliance. Training managers on these policies is key since they're often the first line of implementation when meeting. I consult with legal experts to address more complex issues. Question number 3, describe your approach to talent acquisition. The response was, I take a strategic and productive approach by first understanding the company's long-term goals and workforce needs. I focus on building strong pipelines through diverse sourcing channels and employer branding. During the hiring process, I prioritize structured interviews and objective evaluation critic to ensure fairness and quality. I also emphasize candidates' experience as it reflects directly on the organization. Question number 4, how do you measure HR success? The response to that was, I use a combination of quantitative and qualitative matrices. Key indicators include employee turnover rates, time to fill positions, employee agreement sources, and relations of high performance. I also gather feedback through surveys and exit interviews to understand trends. Question number 5, how do you handle confidential information? The response to that was, confidentiality is fundamental in HR. I strictly follow company policies and legal requirements when handling sensitive data. Access is limited to only those who need it, and ensure information is stored securely. I'm also careful in conversations discussing private matters only in appropriate settings, building trust with employees depending heavily on maintaining this confidentiality. And those were my 5 questions.
Okay, so I'm doing investment banker. The first question was walk me through a DCF analysis for a non-finance client, and the answer was think of a discounted cash flow as a way to figure out what a business is worth today based on how much cash it will generate in the future. The first is we project the company's free cash flow over a period, usually 5 to 10 years. But because $1 tomorrow isn't worth as much as $1 today, we discount those future dollars back to the present using a specific interest rate called the WACC, which is weighted average cost of capital. Finally, we add a terminal value to account for the company's worth beyond those 10 years. The sum of all those discounted value gives us the total value of the business today. The second question is, how would you mitigate risk if a deal goes south at 2 a.m.? The answer is, my first priority is stabilization and communication. I will immediately review the termination of material adverse change clauses in the current draft of the agreement to see what the legal protections are. I would then prepare a conscious impact summary memo. I would send an urgent flag brief so it is the first thing they see at 5 a.m. ensuring we had a strategic response ready before the markets open. The third question is, how do you stay resilient during 90-hour work weeks? Resilience in banking isn't just about grinding, it's about process optimization. I use automatic auditing tools to double check my models, which reduces the loads of manual proof. I also identify the most critical tasks for the deal's success and tackling those when my focus is highest. Knowing that the work I do in those hours is directly facilitating a multi-billion-dollar IPO or a transformative merger provides the professional motivation to maintain high accuracy. The fourth question is the impact of the tokenized economy on IPOs by 2030. Tokenization is shifting us towards IPOs by 2030. We will likely see hybrid listings where companies issue traditional equity alongside blockchain-based tokens. This increases liquidity and allows a broader range of global investors to participate. For an investment banker, our world will shift from just underwriting to becoming digital asset architects, ensuring that the smart contracts governing these tokens comply with SEC and FINRA regulations while maintaining market stability. The fifth question is, what do you do if you find a model error right before a presentation? Accuracy is the only currency we have in banking. If I find an error, I will immediately notify the lead associate. If there's a time to fix it and rerun the sensitivity tables, I do so instantly. If the presentation is literally starting, I will flag the specific slide for the MD and suggest we present that specific metric as a range to be updated in the follow-up. It is always better to admit a calculation is being refined than to present a known falsehood to a client.
And then I had a market research analyst. The first question I asked chat is, can you describe your experience with data analysis and the tools you've used? Chat responded with, I have experience analyzing data using tools like Excel and Google Sheets, where I organize large sets of information and use formulas, charts, and pivot tables to identify trends. I'm comfortable working with basic statistical concepts and turning raw data into meaningful insights that can support business decisions. The next question was, how do you approach designing and conducting market research studies? Chat responded with, I begin by clearly defining the objective of the research, such as understanding customer preference or evaluating a product idea. Then I select the most appropriate method, like surveys, interviews, or focus groups. After collecting that data, I carefully analyze the results to identify patterns and draw conclusions that can help guide market strategies. Next question was, tell me about a time you analyzed data and made a recommendation. And chat responded with, in a class project, I collected and analyzed survey data about students' buying habits. I noticed a strong preference for convenience and online purchasing options. Based on this insight, I recommended focusing on digital ordering and mobile-friendly platforms. This helped improve the overall effectiveness of our project strategy. Next question was, how do you ensure the accuracy and reliability of your data? Chat responded with, I make sure to use reliable data sources and carefully check my data for errors and inconsistencies. I also ensure that my sample size is appropriate and representative of the target audience. Additionally, I review my analysis multiple times and, when possible, compare results with other sources to confirm accuracy. And the last question was, how do you communicate complex data to people who aren't familiar with it? Chat responded with, I focus on simplifying information by using visuals like charts and graphs to make the data easier to understand. I avoid technical language and instead explain the key takeaways in a clear and concise way. My goal is to help the audience understand not just the data, but what it means and how it can be used to make decisions. Do you have any questions? Anything good?